Hey, Armin here. Welcome to the NSP Nutrition Show, where we cover training, nutrition, supplementation strategies, and a whole lot more. So stand by. Hey, and welcome to the NSP Nutrition Show. I'm Armin Eckelbarger.
I'm Frank Mills. Hey, welcome to the show. If you're watching or listening, we definitely appreciate you joining us. Today, we've got another great show for you, but Armin's thrown us a curveball. Today, we're going to be talking about what is FST7 training and what would Vince say about it. So this is something new for me. I'm excited to learn about it. Also, we have your fan questions. We'll be answering those as well. So let's get started with today's show. Armin, what is FST7 training? It's a interesting topic. I know nothing about this. So where did this topic come from, Armin?
Good question. Well, I think it's going to be interesting in the sense, based on my experience of how it compares to Vince's 8x8 training, since I've learned how to do both. It's very interesting. This should be an interesting thing for everybody to kind of learn from, and we'll see what they think. But
Gotcha. Well, I guess we should start by knowing what is FST7 training. What does it mean?
all right, so FST7, FST is an acronym which is for fascial stretch training, and then 7. We'll talk a little bit more about the 7.
Okay.
So it's a training program that was developed by bodybuilder and trainer. His name is Hani Rambod, HanyRambod.
Okay.
This program is based on the idea that stretching the fascia, which is the connective tissue that surrounds your muscles, can lead to further muscle growth and improved muscle definition. So that's what was his thoughts on it.
So. All right. So you got me curious. Boy, that sounds like taking it to another level. So how would this be structured, Armin?
Okay. So, part of the FST7, what the 7 means is it means doing 7 sets of a specific exercise at the end of your workout for that particular muscle group. So you're going to take this one exercise, you're going to do 7 total sets with it. Okay. So each set is done for 12 to 15 reps because you want to get, again, we're trying to force as much blood into the area as possible. And you're going to do shorter rest periods. So like Vince would do with the 8x8, you're going to do 30 to 45-second rest periods in between the sets.
Okay.
So as you keep pushing and pushing and pushing and forcing more blood in there, it's when the effect starts to happen. So that's important. So it's the high volume that does this. And so what you're going to do, they call it creating a lot of metabolic stress, but you're basically breaking down a lot of muscle. Is what you're doing at a high level, which obviously can can stimulate muscle growth because the body has to adapt, repair, and try to deal with that stress. So that's good news. And so this is something that's intended to be used at the end of your regular workout routine. So you don't just do the FST7 exercise that you select, and that's all you do. You do it at the end, so it's not designed to be a replacement of your training routine. So it's something to add more stress to your routine. So the program is really, because of the level of stress it creates and other factors we're going to talk about, it's really designed to do for about a 4-week training cycle. And then they recommend you take a break, which would make sense because it is a lot of stress on many levels that your body goes through. So that's why it would be considered more of a game changer. But kind of like with Vince, the 8x8 is, that's rough. I mean, it's on the same concept. So anyways.
Well, you did mention in the headline of the topic that, what would Vince have to say about the program? What did you mean about that part?
Well, so when you start comparing out the notes of how 8x8 works, which has been around since, I don't know, 50s or 60s or whatever, and you compare it to this concept, I mean, they are very, very similar. The only difference is he's using a higher rep scheme. He's doing, Hani's doing 12 to 15. Vince just felt like 8 with, heavier weight. In this particular case, you'd be using
Mm-hmm.
heavier weight, was very effective. And so it kind of makes you kind of wonder how he came up with it. That's kind of what I'm saying.
So you think maybe Hani copied it or kind of just added to it or something, or what do you think?
Well, at the end of the day, I have no idea. I
Yeah,
don't know what
yeah.
kind of thought process, but it's kind of ironic.
Mm-hmm.
Hani, he does read a lot of things and study things because he's pretty cutting edge from the things I've
Mm-hmm.
learned. So it's just that they're really similar. And the funny thing for me is I learned about FST7 before I came across all of Vince's stuff that I forgot about a short period later. So I was like, huh. So then I was kind
Mm-hmm.
of intrigued by the 8x8 because I'd already done FST7.
Right, right.
So I was like, wow, that's very interesting. And then
Mm-hmm.
Hani's become known as the trainer of champions because he's worked with a lot of IFBB professional bodybuilders and helped them to win, like Phil Heath, Jay Cutler, and there's others that he's worked with, and they've won a lot of Olympia titles.
Mm-hmm.
And but they used him to get there. So some of his claim to fame, though, with their success, was him being using the FST7 training. So I was like, okay. And like with Vince, some of his claim to fame was coming up with 8x8.
Right, right.
So
Interesting.
it's just kind of funny, interesting. Yeah.
So have you tried both? And if you have, exactly what has been your experience with it?
Yeah, I've done both.
Okay.
So, for starters, uh, the FST7 and 8x8 are just flat out brutal if you do them correctly.
Right.
So, uh, and so what the point is here is you use these techniques, which Vince also talked about, as you get more advanced. You don't start doing this with 1 year training and this and that because you're putting way too much stress on the body, and you're probably going to have a hard time with it. Would be
Mm-hmm.
my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So what these type of high intensity programs are designed to do is to help bring up weaker muscle groups, which makes sense because the demands are very, very high. If you try to do this on every muscle group, you would be exhausted in a nutshell at no time at all. You wouldn't be able to even move, probably.
Right, right.
So both of them said, hey, you use this for these strategies. Okay. Um, and again, the whole thing is as you bring up the weaker body parts, you're just trying to push as much more blood into that area to
Mm-hmm.
expand it more to try to help it catch up with other muscle groups that are responding pretty easily.
Right,
So that
right.
was one of the techniques. Now you can obviously use it for a strong body part too if you want to, but again, you got to save your energy for where you want to put it. And if you're a bodybuilder or physique competitor, your mental strategy most of the time is how to bring up your weak areas so everything looks really good. So you have no flaws. That's your ultimate goal, which isn't
Mm-hmm.
easy to do either. If you got a weak lower back or you got weak lats or not popping out, and this would be something you would use to help bring up those weaker areas. And so when you're talking about this, like when I read his strategy, which is Hani, and then I read Vince, they're both dealing with expansion of the muscle group. But Vince was like, you push too much blood into the capillaries, it causes everything to expand in the muscle. That was Vince's take on it. And that's going to fuel the growth. And then Hani was, no, what you're doing is you're expanding the fascia outside the muscle where it loosens it up so it can actually grow more. And so, but at the end of the day, it's in my opinion, it's a combination of both doing, getting as much blood to the capillaries as possible, causing the muscle to swell and swelling enough to slowly start stretching and the fascia out to try to adapt to the volume that's being pushed to
Mm-hmm.
it. So what the keys are going to be is knowing what exercises to do to achieve the desired result. And that's one of the other things. That's why, Vince had his strategy with certain muscle groups that he would use the 8x8 for.
Mm-hmm.
And then the same thing with Hani. Because the bottom line is it's brute manning. So you need to be focusing on recovery as you do this. and then the mental game.
Right. And all that does sound demanding, but you just said something here
It
that
is.
about the mental game. What did you mean by the mental game?
Okay, so like anything you do in the beginning, you don't have an expectation of how it's gonna work.
Okay.
So you're pretty fresh. You're fresh mentally. Your nervous system is fresh. Okay, so you don't really know what to expect. You just know it's going to be tough to do, and you get into there and you do it. Okay,
Okay.
so when it's new, it's like not a big deal, but you're learning. Like, I mean, this is not easy. And as
Right.
you continue to do it, you're trying to keep your level of intensity the same as the first time you did it, but you're also trying to add more weight. So that is another stressor. Okay. And so, as you know, like when you start doing this, you get really sore. I mean, the soreness is like, and we'll talk more about that, but it's just like, wow, because
Mm-hmm.
you need time for that to recovery to happen. And so it's like, if you're going to rake the yard for 2 hours, you already know that when you get down, your back's going to be sore, your shoulder's going to be sore, you're going to have some body aches because you did that. Well, your expectation when you do this kind of training is like, you already know it's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be easy. And so
Mm-hmm.
it starts to affect you on the mental game. I mean, it's like, oh, all right, let me see what I can do. And then when you're in it, you're just trying to hang on and get through it. So it's kind of like mental torture to some
Hmm.
degree,
Okay.
in my opinion. And so, one of the ways to keep it fresher is to be changing up the exercises you're going to use. Is another way to kind of deal with it. But if you can just imagine something you're doing and you don't like to do it because of what it does to you, that's kind of how 8x8 and FST7, in my opinion, can affect you
Mm-hmm.
mentally because you're trying to keep the intensity high and you're also trying to add weight to see if you can take things another level. And so you're paying a price to see if you can do it. And so mentally you're like you're kind of dreading it when it comes time to execute. So that's kind of
Right.
my main point there on the mental game.
And
That's why a
you
lot of
had
people can't do
right.
this consistently either.
Right. Well, you had mentioned too to keep things kind of fresher and to change up the exercises. And to me that does make sense because if you do the same thing
Uh,
over and over and over, you're right. Mentally, it's going to be hard, and even to get up to do the exercises, you're going to be almost kind of dreading it because I got to do this
exactly.
again, right? So that
Yeah.
does make sense to me, but can you offer some examples of what you mean by trying to freshen things up and change it up?
Okay, so a couple things to keep in mind when you're doing FST7 and you're selecting exercises. You're generally going to pick an exercise that you have pretty good control over. So this is not something you typically want to do for heavy squatting. I mean, you could try to do it, but I can't even imagine that. Heavy bench
Mm-hmm.
pressing, these kind of large compound movements. So they're generally going to be a cable exercise or a machine exercise or an isolation exercise that you have good control over because the fatigue is substantial. But with that being said, I did find it to be helpful, like doing leg presses. So if I want to work outside of my quads to try to focus on that, and there's all kinds of debate about foot position. Doesn't matter, which is
Mm-hmm.
fine. I don't care. I like changing foot position because I feel it in my, maybe it's placebo, but I feel a difference. So, but there's always debate on foot position. But anyway, so if I want to work the outer part of my quads, I like to keep a closer foot stance, and this is something that Vince was big on too, with his hack squat and other movements. So I use a closer foot stance, and so I'm going to do that one. Again, over and over for the 7 sets.
Mm-hmm.
So knowing that, doing that every single time to work the outside of my quads, like I actually did the FST7 yesterday. My legs are already sore as hell, but
Mm-hmm.
I did it on a leg press for 7 sets, and finishing at the end it was just really rough because you're trying to stay in that 12 to 15 rep range, but you're also trying to go heavy. And
Right.
you
Right.
you can't be taking you get short breaks, so this accumulation really starts to add up. So as an example, so then not instead of having to do a leg press next time if I'm going to do FST7, then I may go to a hack squat. and find that weight I want to use for that, because it's going to be a different feel and it's a different a different piece of equipment. So I'll do that, and so I'll put that in rotation. And then another one would be like doing leg extensions. Doing our leg extensions is a lot easier because your heart rate's not so jacked up. Because when you're doing leg presses and hack squats, your heart rate gets up pretty high, which causes it to be a lot more demanding. Leg extension, your heart rate doesn't jump up so much, but the fatigue on a leg extension is much quicker because it's an isolation exercise. So that's that's some examples just to work the outside of the quads. Another one would be like, if you say you want to focus on your upper chest, it's just not coming up, it's not nice and round like you want it, and your chest is kind of your upper chest is not, it's more flat than it is round, and you want to start focusing on it. So one of the things you could do dumbbell incline presses in the beginning, because you have some control with those. Now the only thing is you may need to drop the weight once that fatigue is too intense, but that's kind of a compound exercise, but it's also isolating the upper chest. So that's one way to approach it. Doing the dumbbell incline presses, that's you're going to do at the very end. Then just hammer that upper pec line, and just making sure you got the bench lined up so it hits that area. And then another option would be machine incline presses, like a hammer incline or whatever the machines that they have that have an incline option for it. That's a great one, because once you're getting fatigue, you hit the wall, you're safety, because you just let the machine come back down to the starting position. So I like that. And another one would be doing incline flies. Incline flies, I mean, you're going to use the dumbbells. You could use an incline, if they have a fly machine, you can use that too. But that's another way to do it. And again, you have pretty good control over it. It's just that fatigue, because of the way it hits you, is intense. So, I mean, that's just a couple of quick ones. But you can, like triceps, you can do rope extensions behind the back versus trying to do close grip bench press. Because close grip bench press, I can tell you, I've already tried it. That is absolutely brutal to try to do at the same amount of weight, because you're supposed to stay with that same amount of weight until you get to the end. And that's what that's where the accumulation comes from. So to kind of give an example there.
Okay. Well, Armin, based on your experience, how long would you continue using this strategy, for training? Is there any type of a time limit on it? What do you think?
Well, I definitely think that after 4 weeks or so, you're going to be like, wow. But I was able to go like 6 to 8 weeks for different areas I was working. So for me, that's what I was able to do. But I'm also was really focused on it, because I knew how much it was breaking things down. I had to really focus on my recovery and the mental fatigue that comes with it. Because I mean, it's not easy. I mean, that this is gonna, because it's at the end of your workout. You typically don't have a lot left in the tank, but you're trying to finish up with whatever you got to see what you can do. So, but that's how it's designed to be executed.
Well, I'm also kind of curious too. Is it something that you can do, like, for example, let's say that you really like your physique of your chest, but you want to work another area, you aren't getting the results that you want. Can you mix up your workout to where you do your normal workout for one area of muscle, and then you do the FST7 for the area that you're trying to improve? Is that something you're able to do?
Yeah. So in other words, again, you're going to do your normal workout based on what you want to focus on. But at the end, you're going to take and use FST7 or even 8x8 for that matter, and then finish up. So what you need to understand is, if you got 7 sets of FST7, then you don't need to be doing 20 sets of other stuff before you get to the last round of 7 sets. That doesn't compute. You're gonna be way overtrained. So you do your like 10 to 15 sets or whatever, or even less. Yeah, I think 10 to 15 is a good range. And then you finish with FST7 for that one muscle group that you really want to bring up, because you have enough energy to get it done. So that's just, to me, that's the best strategy on how to use it, is just bringing up those weak muscle groups.
Interesting. Okay. So you feel it's an effective training strategy like the 8x8 thing. Is that what you're saying?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's a game changer for sure, because you get a very intense burn, because when the blood comes in the muscle, and the blood's hot when it's coming in, so that burn starts kicking in. And then you're trying to get to those rep schemes, and you got oxygen being utilized. They say weight training is anaerobic, but you're still using oxygen to help breathe and move and get the contractions. So that's fatiguing you, and you're just trying to see if you can keep your form as good as possible because you're fatiguing. So when you fatigue, it's real easy to start looking for places to cheat. So that's the other thing you got to do. You got to keep your form really tight. So, like any other training strategy, to get the best results, the key is to get your recovery through nutrition, supplementation, your sleep, and keep your hormones optimized. But it is like the 8x8, it's a good game changer. So you can do either one. At the end of the day, understand what your strategy is by using it, and then watch your recovery. They're very effective. Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, a lot of great information. Trying to learn about this, it's really good stuff. And knowing that it's similar to the 8x8, I'm sure a lot of the folks that have tried or done 8x8 kind of know what they may be getting themselves into. But we're running out of time. Any final thoughts, Armin, about FST7?
Okay, just remember that it's a higher rep scheme as it's designed. So you're going to use a little bit lighter weight. All right. But again, you're staying at 12 to 15. So that's kind of a challenge. But this is an advanced training technique. So you need to be training for a little while before you start throwing this in there. So having a few years under your belt, because your central nervous system and your biomechanics and all that, they need to be really tuned in, because as you're fatiguing, you got to keep your form where it needs to be to prevent any kind of injury and stuff. Okay. And then you got to learn how your body's responding from it so that you don't get overtrained. So that's really important. So you're putting yourself through a lot of stress. Let's make sure you're getting that recovery. And I would do some stretching at the very end of the muscle group that you did this with, because you've already expanded with the capillaries and potentially expanded the fascia. So the stretching, because the muscle's already pumped, can probably help that fascia to loosen up even more. So that's one of the other techniques I like to do, is some stretching at the very end, depending on what muscle group you're doing, for like 30-second static holds, things like that. Not dynamic stretching, but static hold type stretching to really feel that muscle just, it's very intense on how tight the skin is. So, and again, when you do the stretching, you want to make sure you're being really careful with it. So if anything doesn't feel right, then don't continue to try to stretch through it. Okay. But this should help with the blood flow, and then it can also help with reducing your delayed onset muscle soreness. DOMS is what they call it, but the soreness level, it can help improve the soreness level because you do get sore.
So if you are advanced in your training, go and try 8x8 if you haven't done it. And FST7. Get ready for the pain, right, Armin? But also for the results.
Yeah. And again, you can do FST7 8x8, but if you're not using enough weight, it's not going to have much impact. Okay. So we're talking about challenging yourself with as much weight as you can with great form. So that's really the bigger difference, because just doing what it says, and you don't use enough weight, that's not going to get the effect.
All right. Well, next up is fan questions, and we'll get to that. But right now, stand by for a quick word from NSP Nutrition. Arm and I will be right back.
Hey, and welcome back to the NSP Nutrition Show. I'm Armin Eckelbarger.
I'm Frank Mills, and hey, before we get into the second part of the show, which is fan questions, just like to bring your attention to, if you're looking for a free hoodie, if you log on to nspnutrition.com right now, you can get 10% off your entire order plus a free hoodie if you spend $250 or more. And I don't know about you, but when I buy supplements, my order is normally more than that. So, get a free hoodie out of it. Wear it for yourself, give a gift. I have one. They're very thick and it's a high quality hoodie. So here's your chance to get a
Yeah.
free one. Take advantage of it at nspnutrition.com. So had to bring that up. All right. Let's get into
Well,
fan questions. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
plus
Go ahead.
real quick, when you do an order that's larger and you get the hoodie thrown in, you're saving on shipping because shipping is just getting to be brutal these days. So that helps save some dollars
Absolutely.
too.
I agree. I agree. So good stuff. So check out nspnutrition.com. All right. So fan questions. We get all different kinds of questions. We're getting a lot of different variety things coming in. And,
Mm.
Armin, it's funny. You and I were talking about this earlier before we started doing the show today. Very popular out now are meal companies. Everybody's busy.
Oh yeah.
And there are companies out there that are offering food. And, you've tried some, I've tried some. I hear from other people, oh, God, don't try them. Oh, try this, whatever. And,
Yeah.
the bottom line is in any preparation for your nutrition program, anything to make it easier, right? Because it's work to
Yeah.
prepare. It's true. It's simple. And normally I'm good with breakfast, Armin. Eggs are a
Yeah.
snap, it's easy to prepare bacon and stuff like that. It's real simple. But where I always run into struggle with my wife, myself, my family, lunch and dinner is always like a turmoil, right? Because you're
Yeah.
always at the end of the day or you're hurrying. And that's where a lot of people get in trouble. So these whole food kind of preparation companies, that's where they're coming in and becoming very popular. And there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
our our question today is from Michael, and Mike's in Arkansas. Okay. Mike
Yeah.
says, guys, I've tried so many food preparation companies, and there's a lot of them out there, and I don't want to mention any of the ones that I think aren't very good, which we appreciate that, Mike. But
Oh, there are.
yeah, yeah. But he's asking, like Armin, what do you think about food preparation companies? One, and secondly, is there any that fit your lifestyle of a personal trainer? Because he aspires to eat good quality food in good portions that are correct, but he's out there not having luck. So do you use them? And if you do, are there some ones out there that will fit the needs for what you do?
Yeah, I've used a lot of them because it makes sense for convenience because during the afternoon you're trying to get things done and then you want to stay on track, and so stopping to have to start making a meal up and preparing it and all that, you're like, this even though it may only be 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes or whatever, you really, your mind's going, can we do something a little quicker so I can stay on track with what I'm trying to get done today? And then when it gets time for dinner, again, you may still be working, trying to get things done, or you're just so tired, you're like, I don't feel like making a big meal and then cleaning up the dishes and all that. So yeah, it's going to be around. I think it's always going to be around, and there's a lot of them, and I've tried a lot of them. And the biggest thing you want to look for is, do you like the food? Do they fill you up? Because that's also, I've done a lot of them that's like, well, that was a good snack. Okay,
Right,
so that way it
right.
didn't fill me up. So that's not good. And then how convenient is it for them to have it shipped in? So uh, I like it. I think it's a great concept. I think it's great, especially if you're really busy, and it helps keep you on track. So and then you have to make sure that the food company has, because some of them don't. Do they have what you're looking to do? So like I like low carb, okay, and then but from time to time I'll eat a high carbohydrate meal as well. So do they have a low carb strategy, or what they would call keto? And do they have a higher carb, or what they call regular uh, nutrition is what they call
Mm-hmm.
it? So, and then then some of them have vegetarian and vegan and all that kind of stuff. So depending on what you're looking for, that's the first thing to shop for. And then when you're trying, just try them, again for like 1 week or whatever, or maybe just try whatever their minimum order is. Some have a minimum order of 6 meals, and some have 10, and that kind of thing. So play through that, and then see if you like how they prepare the meals and how they warm up, and then are they in microwavable safe containers that aren't going to leach the plastic into the food. So that's another thing you want to check. Make sure it's a microwavable safe bowl or container.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So that being said, I've tried a lot of them, and like I mentioned to you, the one that I like at this point that I recommend my clients and even my wife and the kids like is Factor 75. And
Okay.
they're nationwide. They use, I mean, I don't know how they do the ingredients, but man, their low carb keto option it tastes really good and it fills you up. Their calories are going to range from 500 to 700, close to 800 calories per meal, depending on if it's a pork or it's going to be steak or chicken, turkey, that kind of thing. So that was the one that I found works the best at this point. I'm always checking out the new, ones that come out, but I've
Right.
been on that one now for quite a while because me and my wife, we do 10 meals a week just because of our schedules, and it helps keep you on track. So I recommend it. Typically, it's going to run about $110, give or take, for 10 meals for the week. So that's another thing to kind of keep in mind. But that would be my suggestion. Factor 75. You can look them up online. I mean, I do have an affiliate, but it's not a big deal. All they do is send me a referral bonus for referring somebody, so it's not a big deal. So give that a shot if you want, and see what you think. I think you'd be pretty surprised.
Awesome. Okay. Well, hopefully that answers your question. And, we have another question here. We're kind of running short on time, but we got one more from Simon over in the UK. And Simon says, Armin, he actually watched our show, Frank Mills Reality Fitness, when we were doing that. And he found out about where we moved to, and he's watching this one. He goes, guys, you guys are a little bit more advanced on this show, but I've been working out. And he goes, there's some days I am so sore that it's painful sore. Is there anything that you suggest other than drugs, like medication, or like to help with the soreness and help the recovery? He says, there are some days like I have trouble walking the next day. I have, on leg day.
I've been there.
Right.
Yeah.
So do you have any suggestions for soreness? I've heard about ice baths and, there's all kinds of products out there that you can rub on, like BioFreeze and those kind of things. But Armin, is there anything that's like your kind of go-to thing for soreness?
Well, yeah, there's a lot of different things you can use. First and foremost, fish oil helps with keeping soreness under control. So you can double up on your fish oil intake. That's an easy one to do. Now, if you can do an ice bath, which I can't do, I can't stand it. But if you can do an ice bath, that works really well. Okay?
Right.
Bottom line, it'll reduce the soreness substantially because I have different athletes I've worked with, and that's what they use, and it does work.
Okay.
Outside of that, if you don't, then I like to get in the hot tub or take a hot shower and just stretch the muscles some more because they're already warmed up, because stretching can seem to help, or get on a roller that can help reduce it, even though it's still going to hurt when you get on the roller, but it will take the pain out pretty rapidly. So those would be the things I would use to try to improve that condition.
All right. Well, Simon, hopefully that helps you out. I can absolutely attest to the foam roller. And doubling up on the fish oil, Armin, good suggestion. I'm going to try that.
It works pretty good.
Good stuff. Okay. Well, listen, we hope you enjoyed the show, but we need your content for the NSP fan questions, topics, anything that you want to offer. Hey, we're listening. We will use your information and even give you a shout out and thanking you for using it. So if you want to send it over, use the QR codes. You can send it that way. Also, you can comment on YouTube and Armin reviews that all the time. And then
Yep.
last but not least, email support@nspnutrition.com. And who knows, maybe your topic or question will be used on next week's show. So get it in.
Yeah.
And, you know, Armin, we rely on our audience. And I'll tell you what, we appreciate them listening, watching, and contributing. And, you know, we can't do without them, right?
Yeah, I mean, again, that helps everybody. So, and you know, if we can help you, that's what we're here for.
Absolutely. Share it with your friends and family too. We appreciate that.
Yeah.
And join Armin and I next week for a brand new episode of the NSP Nutrition Show.
Hey, thanks for checking out the NSP Show. Go to nspnutrition.com where you can find a whole heap of resources to help you achieve stunning definition and eye-popping levels of muscularity. Don't forget you can save 10% on your first order by using the code NSP Show at the checkout. Catch you next time.